Stephen Twigg.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a pleasure to follow the Honourable Lady, and I agree with what she said, and in particular the importance of the Rohingya voice being heard in this debate. In September 2016, the UN General Assembly adopted the New York Declaration for Refugees and Migrants, and that declaration seeks a commitment by member states to strengthen and enhance their mechanisms to protect people on the move. The declaration is, I believe, a significant achievement, but the challenge is to turn words into action. And as the International Development Committee report that we published last week pointed out, the Rohingya crisis has tested these commitments to destruction. I echo what others have said today about the Rohingya crisis. One lesson we must learn, surely, that is relevant to the motion, the excellent motion before us today, is that prevention is always best. And as the Honourable Lady reminded us, this did not come from nowhere. We have known for years about the threat to the Rohingya people, and there were early warnings from Human Rights Watch and from the Holocaust Museum in Washington in recent years. I echo what others have said about repatriation. That simply cannot be on the agenda in the foreseeable future, and I hope the Minister will reaffirm that in his closing remarks today. In the situation with the Rohingya, but also in other situations like Afghanistan, Libya and Syria, it is deeply concerning that we are seeing increasing rhetoric expecting refugees to return to countries that are simply not safe to return to. We need to recognise that in many cases people are going to be in these countries for many years to come. And one of the ideas that was given to the Select Committee inquiry was that we should learn from the Jordan experience with Syrian refugees and look at whether Bangladesh could adopt a special development zone that would provide economic prospects both for the Rohingya refugees but also for the local population to limit the danger that there is resentment of by local people of the refugees. The average time now that someone can expect to be a refugee is 10 years, and that's the average. Many are refugees for far longer. As my honourable friend said in opening this debate, we have an increasing number of complex and protracted crises. I think we need to learn from experience elsewhere, and I want to cite again the example we've heard about today, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine. I think it is vital that its crucial work is maintained, but I want to make a slightly different point. I think we can learn from it. I think when we look at protracted crises in parts of Africa, we look at the Rohingya crisis, actually the amazing work that UNRWA has done to support Palestinian refugees in Gaza, the West Bank, in Syria, in Lebanon and Jordan over a period of almost 7 decades now is something I believe from which we can learn for other crises. An overlooked aspect of this debate sometimes is internal displacement. More of those who are moved are internal than external, and sometimes the situation is much harder if you're an IDP than a refugee. If you're a Syrian, actually you can have a much tougher time internally displaced still in Syria than if you do make it to Lebanon or Turkey or Jordan. I think this needs to be a larger part of our focus. And finally, the theme of the global goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, is leave no one behind. Let us recognise that disabled refugees often face some of the biggest challenges, and we've taken a lot of evidence in the Select Committee, for example in our Syrian refugee crisis in the previous Parliament on this. And finally, education. DFID is about to publish its policy refresh on education. It is crucial that the educational needs of children who are living as refugees or IDPs are at the centre of that policy refresh. Yeah.